I don't want to take up too much time because I want to give as much time to our speaker for the day. But I know many of you know Dr. Harden. She's a personal mentor of mine, but she has also done many events here at UF, such as the LinkedIn workshops and things like that. But she is a former College of Pharmacy professor here. She has background in many things pertaining to pharmacy, MTM and retail being just a few. She's also currently an owner and CEO of her own company called Halo Health, which I'll kind of let her explain if she'd like. And then she's also a yoga instructor. She has her own podcast. She just does it all, really. And then another thing that I really kind of want to point out and that I love is the Pharmacist Out of the Box podcast that she does with Dr. Bryn Tinney. And basically, it kind of just showcases and highlights other areas of pharmacy that are just very unique. And so if you're like me, you might not always want to, go down the traditional pharmacist career path, like hospital or, retail. This is a great resource for you because she has had some guest speakers on here that, like I said, from many different walks of life and have taken kind of untraditional paths within the pharmacy career. So it kind of just, I know for me, broaden my horizon on some things I can do with my PharmD. And it's a great resource for you guys too. So I'm also going to put the link to that in the chat. There's going to be a lot of links in the chat. But I do kind of just want to give you guys all these resources because I think, I feel especially this one is a great one to have. So without any further interruption, I do want to unshare my screen and welcome our guest speaker for the day, Dr. Harden.
Well, hello, and thank you guys so much for letting me come and share today. Every time somebody comes to ask me to talk, it always surprises me, and yet I do feel called that is something that is part of my purpose, is to be eccentric and unique and somehow share that with the world because the world needs to hear it. So I really appreciate you guys letting me come today. I am going to share about self-care. Let me share my screen and then make sure that you guys can see it. Okay, and we go to 145, is that correct, Sarah? Yes, or is it 140?
So it's 145. I know some people have tests and things after, so 145.
Okay, no problem. Can you guys see my screen? Okay, yes. Perfect. So today we're going to talk about self-care. And this is such an important topic, and I'll share with you later how important it is, like how everyone sees it as important. But sometimes it's seen as a negative thing. I've found self-care can be something that people see as paying too much attention to yourself, maybe looking at yourself more than you look at others, and that's kind of selfish, or perhaps it's even lazy to spend that time with yourself versus doing something productive. But I want to kind of set all of that aside and ask you today just to kind of open up your mind to how you can better take care of yourself and why that's important. Now, before we begin, let me just see if I can get this thing to work. It's not going to work. Oh, yep, let's go back. So who am I and why should you even be listening to me, right? So first off, a speaker is always supposed to tell you what their credibility is of why they should be talking. So who am I? I wanted to share with you guys that who I am is a horse lover. I love horses. And I think they're one of the most incredible creations that God created. They're powerful, and yet they're graceful, and yet we work with them as a human being together. Just an amazing creature. That's who I am. Oh, and I'm also a crazy chicken lady. I have 8 lovely hens at my house that give us great organic eggs, and I love my girls. I also have 2 crazy French bulldogs that are actually in the room with me if you happen to see them in the background. They're a big part of my life. My children grew up and moved out of the house, and these guys moved in, and they're my new children. So I'm a dog lover, and this is my crazy family who is extremely important to me. We get together at least once a week and spend time together, and that's one of the most important things that I value in my life. As Sarah said, I'm also a yoga instructor and a meditation guide. And that's a big part of who I am. As she said, the Pharmacist Out of the Box is a podcast that me and my friend Bryn Tinney have. You can find it on YouTube. I'll give you the information again at the end. But it's a great place for you guys as students. We decided to share from our hearts kind of our experiences in pharmacy and realized we were out of the box. And we now interview tons of pharmacists doing unique things in pharmacy. So it gives you guys a lot of great ideas as to career options that maybe not in your forefront of your thoughts. Like Sarah said, it's a great place to go and kind of see what unique pharmacists are doing. And then I also have a meditation podcast called Nurture Your Soul that is basically full of kind of some bloggy things that I share, thoughts I share, but it's become more of a meditation place. So if you enjoy today and you want more of a meditation type experience, these are free, and I'll give you the information again later. This is probably what you expected me to show when I introduced myself, right? You guys, when somebody says, "Who are you?" then our first thing we go to, and you're going to have a tendency to do that as well, is to go to what you do. So, you know, I could introduce myself and say, well, I'm a pharmacist. I was a professor for about 9 years. I graduated from the University of Florida. I'm board certified ambulatory care specialist, right? I can start listing the things in my career of who I am. But I want you guys to think about what I just did, because who I am is those things I told you before. What I do is those things I told you here at the end, my job, my career. And I implore you to kind of keep that in mind as you continue through your life and your career. Your job cannot be who you are. Your job cannot fully fulfill you and satisfy you in the way you need to be cared for. And when we put a lot of weight on that career to be everything for us, bad things happen. And I'll share that with you. Your life has to be about, you weren't created to be on this planet by the divine God of the universe, whatever you believe created you. You cannot be put here just for your career and to become a pharmacist. There has to be more to you. And I'll tell you, there doesn't have to be, there is. Your purpose in life is to be this human in this form and experience all the things there is to experience. So don't set that aside. Don't let that, pay attention to that too lightly, because it's so important as to your purpose and who you are. So I wanted to start with something that is impactful. I do a lot of speaking about pharmacist burnout. I have another one coming up with a hospital in Jacksonville in about a week. It's just been something that's rolled into my experiences and my skill set of what I do. So this comes from that presentation, and I want you guys to think about this. This was a study that was performed in a hospital system. It was multiple hospitals in multiple states in that system. So it was a very broad swath. It had tons of people in it. And what they looked at was in a whole hospital pharmacy. And so this is the whole staff in the pharmacy. So it included interns, it included students, it included the pharmacists, the technicians. So all of that staff, what percentage of them have a moderate to high level of burnout in their positions? So I'll let you just kind of think that through and what you think the answer might be for just a second. So the answer is actually 70%. Which is not 92%, but that's a huge number. That means over half the people working in a hospital pharmacy is burned out. And that's not a good thing for multiple reasons. So let's talk about why that can happen. So burnout affects pharmacists, and this is good for you to be thinking about now before you even get there. That's why I'm trying to help you not become a burnout pharmacist. We have a job where we have to be perfect, right? And we're usually perfectionists already because that's how we got to pharmacy school. We were that diligent person that did everything just right, got the good grades, right? And so we've learned to be skillful at that being perfect. And as a pharmacist, you want to be perfect and not kill people, right? Because when we're not perfect, bad things can happen. So we have this internal pressure that we put on ourselves to be perfect. Then we have these high stakes because the business or corporation or hospital or whatever you work for also wants you to be perfect. They don't want you to hurt patients. So you have the pressure in this high stakes job. And then we work in a highly regulated job where you're getting audited, OSHA's coming in. You've got all these stipulations that are placed on you administratively that you have to do, right? So we get into this world of being in this high stress, high perfectionist career. That's just part of what we do. And what you're going to find out when you go out and be a pharmacist, this was in a lot of the other studies that I've taken the slides out, but as a student, a lot of you as students we give you these big ideas of how you're going to protect patients and you're going to make a difference in the world. And then you're going to find, I'm sorry to say, but in a lot of the positions that you'll go into as a pharmacist, you won't necessarily be working with patients as much as you dream you will be. And you're going to be doing a lot of administrative tasks and a lot of documentation, which may not bring you the biggest satisfaction compared to where you started with what you thought your job was going to be. And there's other things that play into pharmacists being burned out. We work a lot of times in a place taking care of medications that we don't see the impact of, especially in the hospital setting that can happen. So there's this depersonalization in your job. Sometimes the people on the floors don't necessarily care about you as a person. They just see you as the one keeping the drugs from them. So there's a depersonalization both ways, and there's not a lot of appreciation sometimes for what you do from the patients, from the nursing staff, from the doctors that you work with. Even your bosses will not necessarily be the most appreciative people. So just some of the things to think about of why pharmacists burn out. So it's good for you to think about those now. What ultimately happens when we become burned out pharmacists is it starts to affect the patients. And that's ultimately a horrific thing, right? It's been proven, and I have all the documentation there of where this comes from, but it's been proven that when you're burned out, you make more medical errors. And this comes from the physician side as well in this data. They found that, of course, that produces less safety, environment for your patients. When you're burned out as a person, when you're burned out as a pharmacist, you're caring for how you look, how you act goes out the window. You just don't have the energy for it, and really nobody appreciates it anyway, so why should it matter? So professionalism goes out the window. You're not attentive to patients because you feel like you're not really impacting anything anyway, and nobody cares what you're doing. And so your attention to detail goes away. All of these things ultimately lead to low patient satisfaction, which nobody wants that you would work for. So this is a concern from a level that's higher than you. And I'll let you know, as you'll see in the coming slides, that is getting noticed by corporations. That's getting noticed by hospitals. And so they want to fix this situation as well. So I want to talk about what burnout is. And first I want to start talking about what burnout is not. And you, just like this athlete, are a prime example of what burnout is not. So burnout doesn't, just because you work 14 hours a day, long work hours, does not mean you're going to be burned out. Just because your job is a high stress job, there are people who work in jobs who are like hardworking, they work harder than anybody else, doesn't mean they get burned out. And if you're just tired, that doesn't mean you're burned out. If you're just worn out. So an athlete is a prime example of that. An athlete works harder than the average person. The athlete, their workout is harder. They usually put in more hours per day to do that, whatever they're doing, that sport. So they put in lots of hours, but they aren't burned out. They may be exhausted, but they're not burned out. And the reason they're not burned out is because they have a goal. They're working towards a goal, and because they get rewarded along the way. They see their physical form change, they know they're stronger, they maybe are in some smaller races that they get, they win in or come in second. So there's a reward process and there's goal setting. But when you have all of these things and you're not in an environment that rewards you, or you have a goal that you're achieving in that job, then you're going to get burned out. And that's what happens, because unfortunately your job doesn't always reward you, doesn't always set goals for you to succeed. And that's something then you have to take on to yourself. And that's where the self-care part comes in. This is just a slide. We go through this more so in my other presentations, but I just want you to know, when you're burned out at your work, these are the things that happen. You become an angry, frustrated person. You're suspicious of everybody else being out to get you. Everyone else is getting rewarded. You're not. Nobody cares about you. And that makes you very inflexible and causes you to be depressed. And then there's that depersonalization that you push patients even farther away as not being important. You become very cynical and very ineffective at your job. So this is also a slide we'll come back to at the end. So I want to just quickly show it to you. There is a method to the madness, but they really recognize that there are stages of burnout. When somebody gets burned out physically, you have more illness. You are usually have more chronic pain. Things happen physiologically to you because of the depression, because of all those things that happen internally to you that show up physiologically. Then in social patterns, you get to where you don't reach out, you don't hang out with people, you kind of stay at home. Intellectually, you feel unstimulated. You go through a phase where you just start to wonder about your value intellectually. And then it goes all the way down to spiritually. And what that means, not necessarily on the spiritual religious side, but you start to, even at your core, doubt the values of life and your purpose, and how can this be all there is? You kind of start doubting the hopefulness that you had in your soul. And when you get to that stage, things can go really seriously wrong. So how do we fix all that? What are we talking about today? We're talking about you and how you cannot get to that space. So we're going to talk about resiliency. And what is resiliency? Resiliency is a big word everybody's talking about lately. And so resiliency is just that capacity, just like it says, to be able to get through those difficult, challenging times and be able to spring back. I would venture to say most of the students I work with work really hard. They can be really exhausted. They could be terrified of that test coming up, but they find a way to come back from that. They're happy about the last grade they made. They feel really good about getting through that exam and going out and hanging out with their friends. They feel like they're getting somewhere. And that's because you guys have a goal. That's because you're rewarding yourself along the way with your grades. So we want to keep that going with you. And I'm going to talk about ways that you can continue to do that even after you get out of school. But that's what resiliency is when we talk about resiliency. And we nurture our resiliency by taking care of our well-being. So our well-being is just that inner feeling of goodness, that inner feeling of everything's okay. I'm going through this crazy thing right now, but deep down inside, I do find ways to be happy and I'm comfortable with myself. When you lose that sense of well-being, it really decreases your resiliency and then of course increases your chance of burnout. So resiliency, like I said, is a big word. And what I also mentioned is that is being looked at, this burnout situation in pharmacy is being looked at from the higher levels. And I just basically wanted to show you this slide in the sense that APHA, ASHP, all of them this year came out with either statements of or programs for increasing resiliency in pharmacists and also building up the well-being. So there's all kinds of programs. I know I get an email once a week or once a month at least from APHA asking me to take their well-being survey. So it's a big thing. I just want you guys to know that there's also a global problem, a system problem that's being addressed. And it does come up quite a bit that we need to start with the student level. And you know, I'm so glad I'm here talking to you today, but I think in the future, we're actually going to see resiliency or grit training in our pharmacy schools as part of the curriculum. So self-care, that's the global view, but like I said, self-care is something you have to take on with yourself. Your job will not always be able to satisfy you. Your job will not always set goals for you to succeed and improve and progress and be promoted. They just have a goal for you to fill prescriptions sometimes. So you have to take on that other piece. Everybody talks about their work-life balance. Right now, you're really focusing a lot on your career and succeeding, but when you finish and you get your career, I invite you not to pour everything into your job, to find that balance, that work-life balance. What is it that you enjoy in life? All those things I listed for you that are who I am are things that I cling to because they are my balance. You have to have a balance. So let's go through those stages like I talked about. So physiologically, how can you take care of yourself or have some self-care? You probably know most of these, right? Exercise is what they recommend with at least 120 beats per minute heart rate. That is just a brisk walk. That is not running a marathon. So just going for a brisk walk for 20 minutes about 4 times a week is beneficial for helping you physiologically battle burnout. And then take a break. Even you guys right now, when you're doing all your studying, it's going to benefit you to take just 2 short 20-minute breaks and truly relax. Don't take a break and go do something else. Really take a break to where you shut off the distractions of the world. And I'm going to give you some ways that you can actually do that. And then, of course, sleep well and eat well. In school, I know it's challenging for that, but I do implore you to try to get as much sleep, close the book, turn off the computer, put the phone away, and get some good sleep and eat well. On the social side, make sure that you do the 2 opposite things. Find time to spend with your friends and with the people that love you and bring you joy. And the first one is the one that's really the most important, but sometimes the hardest one to do. And that's the opposite, kind of limiting your time with the people who are toxic. And I'll tell you from my own personal experience, sometimes that's family. And when that's family, it makes it even harder to distance yourself. But there are boundaries that you can make and set for people around you that are for you to just kind of be comfortable with that person, but not have that person totally affect you with whatever the toxicity is in that situation. And vary your social contacts. Make sure you don't have friends that are all pharmacy students. Make sure you have friends that are artists or friends that do technology or other people in your life, because you're going to find each of those different kinds of people bring you something and stimulate you in some way. If you stick with the same people, you're going to get bored, and you're not going to gain as much. And make sure, as much as you try to get out, that you find a way to be comfortable being still. And that's the hardest thing sometimes, to be still and to just be and turn off things. And also find friends that are you're okay with just being quiet with. Friends that will just come over, sit on the couch and watch a movie with you, or maybe go do something, go for a walk and just kind of be peaceful together. That's really important to have those relationships. Now, on the intellectual side, you guys are very much on the intellectual side. You probably have plenty of stimulation when it comes to, growing your mind, growing your knowledge. But when you get out of school and you become a pharmacist, you kind of go through this phase where you're like, yes, I don't have to study anymore. And that's awesome. But for you to stay protected from burnout and increase your resiliency, you're going to need to constantly stimulate yourself. And you don't have to do it just through your pharmacy career. Just like it says here, they really recommend cultural events. Go to a play, go to a symphony. If there's an art show in town, go to the art show. Maybe you like music instead. Make sure you go listen to some bands that are around the town. Kind of get out, become part of the community around you, and that stimulates you and helps your intellectual growth and resiliency. Professional development, you guys are already there. When you're in a job, the recommendations are to always be looking for something. The pharmacists that come to talk to me about burnout and they get kind of stuck and they don't know what they're going to do, they always ask me the questions: should I go back and get a master's degree? Should I go back and get this certification or get board certified? So I would say yes, like in your life, if it's in your cards to kind of keep growing and building your educational background, your skill set as a pharmacist, I think it's always a good idea. Does it always get you a better job? Maybe not, but it's going to grow you in your skill set and it's going to actually stimulate and protect your intellectual resiliency and make you feel viable. Some of my pharmacists that work with me actually get a life coach. Sometimes you need help even further. So that's just something kind of later on to think about. And I would say on this side, let me go back. You have a career coach. So everybody, because I know I'm a career coach, every one of you guys has a career coach, and I invite you to take advantage of them because they have tons of experience, good and bad, that they would love to share with you. So use your career coaches that each of you have, because you can learn a lot from us. I went the right way. Yes, psycho-emotional. So like I said, your job in pharmacy is going to have goals for you, but they're not necessarily going to be goals that are like what you would want. So you want to get your job, you want to impact patients, you want to get that promotion and climb up the ladder. Well, the job itself isn't going to set those goals for you. So it's really important. The pharmacists that sit in a pharmacy and are burned out, they feel like they're not getting anywhere. They feel like nobody cares about them, because you might just have to set your own goals for your career. You might have to tell yourself, I'm going to stick with this hard job that seems kind of unrewarding. I'm going to give it a year and I'm going to work really hard. And in that year, I'm going to get a raise. Or in that year, I'm going to get promoted. And then when you get to that point and you don't get promoted, then you can make a new goal or you can decide to change jobs. So many pharmacists feel like the answer is to change jobs. It might be the answer. But first, there's some things I think that you need to kind of address, because sometimes people change jobs to make things better, and that what's going on comes with them because they don't have that well-being, they don't have that resiliency, and so even the next job they can't survive in. So just something to think about. You need to continue to set your own personal goals so that you know what you're striving for. And when you meet your little goals, reward yourself. Your job isn't always going to pat you on your back. Your boss may be so freaking busy doing their job that they forget to thank you, that they just forget. They don't always reach out, pat you on the back, and tell you you're doing good. So do that for yourself. Buy yourself a pair of shoes, get your hair did, whatever. Like, take care of yourself as long as you don't break the bank, but do little things that make you happy, and reward yourself. Because then when you go to that job, you go there, you do that job, but it's not everything. It's not there to fulfill everything, because you know you've got all this other stuff over here. And don't forget to say no. I think that's important even for you guys as students, because you want to be the president of every organization. You want to shine. You want to make sure you do all the things, and you're that yes person. Yes, yes, yes. It is okay to say no. And it actually communicates to your inner self, yourself, that you care about yourself and that you're protecting yourself. And that actually saying no to some things, you may not feel it, but deep down inside, your body actually appreciates it. There's a part of you that says, wow, we're taking care of ourselves. And so say no. Even as a student, you're going to have ways that you're shining. Make sure you do that, but you don't have to do everything, and it's okay not to. And so we talked about the last one already. And then on the spiritual side, of course, there's the religious world. If you're a religious person, which I am, I'm a spiritual religious person, but if you're not, that's okay. There's a lot of resources that you can feed, right, if you are in that religious system of the world. So take advantage of that. Try to nurture that part of you, and don't let that slide. Let that be something that, if that's what's fed you in the past, that you don't forget about and you nurture inside you, because there's a lot of value there, because it brings a lot of hope, right? There's a lot of talk in there and a lot of reasons that organized religion can bring a lot of hope to people. But then there's personal things you can do. You want to just really connect with yourself. And that's a process. We all are on this journey together. We're all in our life process, our path, and we're growing and we're learning. But if you can find ways to actually connect to yourself in that deeper way, you're going to get a bigger sense of your purpose. You're going to get a bigger sense of the hope of your life and what you're here for and what maybe you're meant to do. So meditation and yoga are great practices to kind of bring us to that self-awareness and kind of draw our attention inward to kind of get to know ourselves better and become more aware, right? Self-aware. Everybody talks about that. And I'm going to share a little bit with you today to kind of give you a step in that direction. But you want to make sure you nurture that part of you, because if you don't, you lose that resiliency, and that's where you feel that sense of hopelessness and a sense of life that has no decent purpose. Life is not of value at all. And then those pharmacists, I mean, it can go into suicidal things. So this is key to making sure you stay healthy in a spiritual way. So when I talk to my pharmacists that are burned out, when I talk to people who are just at their wits' end, the first thing, I sit them down and I tell them, what do you want? And that's a hard question. A lot of people don't know. They're so entangled in getting through school. They're so entangled in the work that they're doing. They honestly have no cognition of what they want and what they even need, what direction they need to steer into. So taking time to connect with yourself, that's a piece that connects you with what you want. And so always think about, maybe have a journal and write down things that you enjoy, write down things that you want in life, and focus on those repeatedly so you don't forget. And take responsibility for yourself. I've said it a few times, work is not going to put your goals, they care about you, but not in the way you want to be cared about. So make sure you take that responsibility for yourself. Take care of yourself. Self-care is okay. Self-care is good. And find that balance. If you take care of yourself, that balance is just going to come into play and not going to be an issue later on in your career. And once you reach that realization of all of this that you can do for yourself, and that your job doesn't have to be the be all in your life, huge power comes with that. When you realize you're in control of your life, you're in control of your happiness, that brings with it huge power. So don't forget those things. Those are kind of the key things. This is me. This is my email. Feel free to email and reach out to me. I have a website with my business. Sarah talked about that. So I broke away. I taught at UF for about 9 years and just decided I wanted to do my own thing. So my dream was to create Halo Health. And it's just a way I take care of patients on the pharmacy side, but I wanted it to be bigger than that. And I now work with health coaches. We help patients on their diet and nutrition. We help them on their fitness level. So we're helping patients in a global fashion, which is what I wanted to do. So if you want to know more about that, it's at halohealth.net. The 2 podcasts are there, the Nurture Your Soul, which has the meditations on it, if you enjoy what we're fixing to do. You can just search that on Apple, Spotify. It's free on Anchor. So if you look up Anchor, like a boat anchor, you can go there and search Nurture Your Soul and get it for free if you don't have any of those other services. And it's on other podcast platforms too. And then the Out of the Box is on YouTube. We video our interviews with the pharmacists, so you get to see them. But if you prefer just to listen, again, that one's on all the podcast platforms as well. So to finish, I wanted to stop sharing my screen. And I wanted us to practice a little bit of self-care. So let me get off of my slides. And I invite you, if you don't want to participate in this, what I'm going to do, because I'm going to do a meditation. It's going to be a brief meditation. And I know, because I guide meditation, I talk to people about meditation. Meditation can be intimidating, right? It's scary to some people. It doesn't make sense to some people. So I'm going to do a very simple one, a very basic, just kind of let you kind of see what it's like. The ones that I can see, have you guys meditated? If you've meditated, raise your hand if you want to. Okay, at least the people like, oh, you have. Okay, Michael. So a lot of people have not. And so I assume the people I cannot see maybe have not as well. So that's how I'm gonna like treat it today. So if you are a big meditator, Michael, you may just like think this is simple, but we're gonna do it if you want to. If you wanna turn your screen off and you don't wanna do it, I will not feel offended that you do not want to do it. Okay, and so we have time, it's 1:24. I just wanna make sure I have enough time. All right, I want you first, you're all sitting in chairs, so just sit in your chair, maybe rock your seat side to side, your sit bones till you just find a central kind of balanced seat. And then sit tall in your seat for a minute, just lengthen through the crown of your head, just like you're just lengthening your spine. We spend a lot of time hunched over, so often that just feels great. And then feel free to rest your arms, either you can rest them on the chair, and I invite you to place them palm down if you do have them on your arms of your chair. And another option is just to place them on your thighs, palm down, if that feels more comfortable. And next, I invite you just to close your eyes halfway if that feels more comfortable. Maybe just look down at your lap. Or if it feels more comfortable, really start to close your eyes. And just start to scan your body. Try to keep your feet, if you can, flat on the earth. We have a lot of energy that we gain from the earth. So in meditation, we oftentimes try to keep our feet on the earth. And just scan your body. Just become curious of how you feel here. Is there any place in your body that you feel tension? Or is your body really completely relaxed? And let's take 3 deep breaths to start. Our breath is a way that we can center ourselves. So exhale your air all the way out. And then through your nose, inhale, fill up, and let your body respond. Your belly expands, your chest. You inhale all the way up to your collarbone. Hold it for just a moment. And then open your mouth and let it go. All the way to the end. Exhale. And then hold it here at the end for a moment. And we'll do 2 more of those. Inhale through your nose, fill up. A big deep breath, lifting your collarbone. Hold it for just a moment. And then open your mouth and sigh it out. Let all that stuff go. Hold it at the end. And last deep breath, inhale, fill up. The biggest breath you've taken so far, fill up all the way to the top. And then sip a little bit more and hold it. And then open your mouth and release and soften and let it go. And then seal your lips. And just continue in a soft rhythm of your breath. Just again, be the observer of your body and notice when you inhale what happens. How your chest rises slightly. And as you exhale, everything softens just a little. And in this moment, again, relax your body. Let your shoulder blades relax down your back. Let your shoulders soften down. Just breathing and taking those deep breaths are something you can do in the grocery line or just sitting in your chair watching videos. That is a meditation. And those deep breaths communicate physiologically to your body to relax and to soften. So take about 3 more breaths on your own. And when you inhale, in your mind's eye, say inhale. When you exhale, speak the words to yourself, exhale. And I draw your attention this time to your thoughts. And again, just be the observer of anything that you're thinking in this moment without judgment. And just recognize that your mind can wander. Perhaps you're wondering when she's going to finish. Perhaps you're thinking about something you need to study for, but just observe whatever thoughts you're having. Just accept them as thoughts. Our mind has a tendency to not want to be still. And so meditation can help us as we practice to calm our thoughts and not let our thoughts take over and rule everything about our lives and our present moment. So inhale again now. And as you inhale, feel the lightness that the air brings in. And as you exhale, just imagine those thoughts just drifting a little farther away from you. Inhale and fill up and feel light. And exhale and allow the thoughts to drift far away. And just focus again to settle your thoughts, perhaps on those words, if that helps. The inhale and the exhale. The stillness and finding this quiet can be intimidating to some when they first start to meditate. Our mind is so used to being busy, and that's okay. When it's a beginning, it's something new, it's something you're trying to practice. That's why we call it a practice, because we do it often enough that we get better at it. Again, this is a practice of just recognizing your thoughts. And when you want to find calmness, you can always, again, bring your attention back just simply to your breath and those words of inhale and exhale. Maybe even becoming curious of your body and its reaction to the breath. And in this meditation, that brings our attention to our inner self. Our breath is our connection with the outside world. We breathe in from the world around us. And as we exhale, we share ourselves with the world around us. So in essence, we breathe the same air and we share the same air. And that starts the beginning of thoughts of how we are one. We are similar. We are all part of the universe, and the universe is a part of us. And slowly lift your left hand and bring the palm of your left hand to your heart space, and just allow your palm to rest on your heart. And then bring your right hand to place it just gently on top of your left so that both hands are cradling your heart. And for now, just feel here physically with your hands what happens when you inhale and when you exhale. How does your body respond? Continue to soften your shoulders down your back. You are a physical being. You have been blessed with this human form and this divine soul that you have, this divine spirit, this true essence of who you are is within and has the blessing of being in this human form to experience life like only you can. Sometimes we forget that and we place expectations on ourselves. We place the expectations of the world on ourselves, which may not align with who we are. And in meditation, we get to remember and be in the moment of experiencing who we are so that we don't forget. And our minds sometimes will not always speak to ourselves in a way that is helpful. We are very critical sometimes of ourselves, of our human form, of our skills. And that's another practice that you can grow. So I invite you instead to speak these affirmations to yourself within your own mind. Speak them to you. I am enough. I am strong. I am smart. I am lovable. I have everything that I need. Everything that I need can be found within me. I am full of love. I am important. I am a treasure. I am enough. I always have been enough. I always will be enough. And on your own here, in the next silence of the few moments, continue to take deep, loving breaths. Just rest in those words. Before you move your hands, perhaps you even can recognize your heartbeat under your hands. that place of loving energy that supports you every moment of your life. Be thankful for your heart. Be thankful for your soul. Be thankful for your body. And slowly relax your hands back down to where they were. Start to wiggle your fingers, maybe clench your hands, maybe touch the thumb of your hands to the fingertips one at a time. Start to wiggle your toes. And gently, slowly, you can open your eyes halfway and then allow yourself to open them all the way. Thank you so much for sharing that moment with me, for sharing your energy and your light, because I truly believe we are one. And whenever I meditate with anyone, or whether it's virtual or in person, I feel it. So thank you. And thanks for letting me share that. And I'd be very interested if you want to share how that made you feel. Or if you have any questions, I'll just go ahead and finish talking. Thank you so much. If I welcome you to the meditations, if you enjoyed that or you're interested in more of something like that, or you're curious about it, I do invite you to go to Nurture Your Soul podcast, and they're all there for free. Again, reach out to me if you don't know how to find them, because there is a place you can go and get them for free. And I invite you too to visit our Pharmacist Out of the Box if you think you'll find that helpful. But I'm going to stop. Thank you so much for letting me be here. Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me, and everyone for being here.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you so much for that. Before we go, does anybody have any questions for Dr. Hardin? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away. I see a lot of comments just saying thank you. That was powerful.
I have a question. Hi, Dr. Hardin. My name is Tyshell. I'm the president of SNPhA.
Hi, Tasha.
But what advice would you have for students who want to maybe practice pharmacy in a more integrated health type of format, as far as, nutrition, health, and wellness?
So there's a very interesting field. This is just one of the opportunities I'll share with you guys. I kind of did my own. I just kind of created it. And I didn't realize until later that there actually is an organized way that you can do this. And I'm not trying to hawk. I don't get any money from I can't say that we don't get any money, but I'm not trying to hawk the podcast. But there is a functional medicine pharmacist. There's a couple on there, actually. We ended up interviewing a couple because of different things. But functional medicine is something you should look into. You actually can get a certification in functional medicine. In functional medicine, there are pharmacists doing functional medicine. So there are functional medicine physicians, there's functional medicine nurses. Like, you can come together in this functional medicine entity and work with people in that sense. So functional medicine, what it just simply is, it looks at the person as a whole. It's more of a holistic type. It's still based on science. It's still all the good stuff. But when you go into holistic medicine, it does look at how does nutrition affect that disease state? How does activity, are there certain vitamins or supplements or alternative medicines that affect that? You still have the pharmacy piece, you still have the medical piece, but it at least brings in those other pieces around that. And that is called functional medicine. So if you want to look into that, that's a great start to kind of get that kind of holistic view of helping patients. Thank you.
Any other questions? I do have another one. So I'll go ahead and ask. So, because I know you were working in more traditional kind of areas of pharmacy at first. When do you think, when did you know it was the right time to kind of do your own thing and then start with the yoga and the podcast? What kind of propelled you to make that switch?
Unfortunately, the answer is burnout, because that's why I feel like I am so in touch with that kind of situation. And again, it wasn't necessarily the job itself or the university. I love my job at the university. That was the hardest thing about leaving university, is I absolutely loved my job and I love helping students. And it was like the perfect job. And anybody looking at me was like, what are you doing? Where are you going? But I can tell you, I personally was at such a place in my life where my health was tanking. I was depressed. I was not stable, not that I was unstable, but I was not in a place mentally. I was not in a place spiritually. I was empty. I was burnt. I just had nothing left. And it didn't make any sense from the outside world. And it was something I needed to work on, Heather. And so that's when I realized it was, I tell people this, and I know I'm a spiritual person, but it was like God was screaming at me that I had to make a change. And it didn't make sense. And I couldn't tell you what in the world I was going to do, but I knew I had to make a shift from where I was. And then I learned once I made a shift, and it gave me the opportunity to spend time with myself and ask that question, like I talked about, what do I want? I had no idea what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want. So it took a while of growth for me to find ways to find and talk to myself about what it is I wanted to do and what are the steps to get there. And now I do all this stuff and it feels so right because I listen to myself. What I'm doing may not be right for anybody else, but I can tell you right now, it's exactly right for me. But I was so ingrained in my job and my career being everything that I had lost that sense of who I was and like what I really needed. So that's what happened. In the short, I'm sorry, I talk a lot, but that's the short story.
You're fine. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. My name is Mitchell. Okay, third year pharmacy student from Hampton University, checking in. My question is, someone who's very interested in podcasting, listen to podcasts like every morning, someone who can talk for days about anything and everything. How were you able to kind of narrow your focus on what did you wanted to talk about and when you were deciding on what you wanted to talk about in your podcast?
That's a really good question, and I'll keep it short. We didn't even know it would be anybody would listen. Like that anybody listens, like just always still makes us happy. We started it, Mitchell. We didn't really know. We were on treadmills at Gainesville Health and Fitness, and we were talking about both of us like the shift that was happening in our lives. And I knew I wanted to when I started, I wanted to make my own business, but I didn't know what it would look like or how to even do it. And so we're talking about like, well, what did you learn? Well, I had to get a business license. And so we started, actually, Bryn said, we need to start recording these things because we know of pharmacists that were burned out, that were in the same place we were, trying to figure out where they were going to go, what else they could do as pharmacists. And she said, you know what? She listened to podcasts a lot too. I have to give her the credit. I wasn't a big listener. And she said, we need to record these things. So that's how it started, is just us recording what we went through and what we were feeling and what we were learning. And then as we learned and kind of said, okay, we need to figure out where we're going and what the options are, then it led to us interviewing these people of what our options were. And that's how it grew. And so I think to your point, Mitchell, I would just say, if you're interested in a podcast, whatever moves you, whatever your heart is speaking to you, or what you feel is of interest, I would just follow that. Because when you follow what fires you up, and what you're experiencing or what you're interested in, then that passion for what you do kind of comes out. And in a podcast, people want to hear that passion. They want to have a reason for listening. So my whole motto when I'm buried is going to be follow your heart. Like that's going to be my tombstone, because I say it all the time. If you follow your heart, then your passion will show. People will come to you because of that energy of your passion, and good things will happen. I'm proof. Like if you just follow your heart with that passion, regardless of what you think the world looks at you like and what they think about you, follow your heart, because that's what God made you for whatever it is you've got. So grab a hold of that and do it. And I would say in the podcast world, there's a podcast for everything. So there's nothing, my friend does one on gaming and like has a ton of people following. So yeah, do what you feel in your heart, and it'll happen. It'll be a good podcast, I promise. If you want to know more about how to get on, because you could do it for free, I'll tell you, just contact me and I'll give you all my tips of like, it's easy. You can definitely do a podcast.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, do we have anybody else? All right. Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Hardin, for coming out and sharing that with us. I know that's something, that we can use beyond today. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yep.
And thank you, everybody, coming out. I hope good luck on any exams or anything coming up. And like I said, I'll send out the co-curricular form to your emails probably within the next day or two. So I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.